Hello and welcome to the Posterized Pixel Pet Portrait Color Palette Worksheet demonstration. To get started, you will need a worksheet, a variety of different paintbrushes. You will need a cup of water to clean your brushes. I also like to have a few paper towels nearby. And finally, a paint palette with 4 colors that are pre-mixed and black and white. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. You're going to choose 4 colors that you are considering for your final project. You can also use black and white. We are going to take those colors and make a value scale going from light to dark. You'll notice that there is a gray strip going through the value scale. Sometimes paint can be very transparent, which basically means that light is being passed through it. So if you still see that gray line through the white paint, that means that it is still transparent. Our goal is to make the paint opaque so that you're not able to see through it. And we can do this by applying lots of different layers. So in this first box, I'm using white, and I'm also using a flat brush, which gives me a nice clean edge. Once I have that first layer on there, I'm going to go ahead and let the paint dry. And now I'm ready for my second value, which is value number 1. It's going to be darker than white. Now you can choose any 4 colors that you like. Just start with your lightest color after white. So I don't want to glob on the paint here to make it look opaque. I want to do a nice, even coat, let that dry, and then I'll apply another layer on it later. Now if you're using a flat brush like I am here, then it is really easy to keep turning it and getting a nice clean edge with the edge of the brush. And once you're done with that box, let that dry. Moving on to value number 2, my second color. Now this paint is a different brand paint, so it is a little more semi-transparent. It covers that gray bar a little better than the first 2 colors that I applied down. Different brands of paint and different colors will either be transparent, semi-transparent, or opaque, and so every color will go down on the paper a little differently. And feel free to turn the paper to make it easier to apply the paint down in a nice clean way. Brush control comes with practice, so it's a good idea to try to strive for nice clean edges on this worksheet. And we're going to let this dry and move on to our next value. And value number 3 should be a shade darker than my last value that I just put down. This color is looking pretty opaque already. Let's let that dry and move on to our fourth value. Our fourth value should be darker than our third value. And this paint is also fairly opaque. Take your time and practice that brush control. If you notice that your paint's a little thick, you can always add a little water to your brush to help move the paint around. Let's let that dry. We are going to then move on to our next and final value, our black value. Now I already know that this black is going to be somewhat transparent because it is a cheaper grade of paint. It is also a lot thinner than the other paints. It doesn't matter which brand of acrylic you're working with, we can add more layers to make this paint opaque. So looking at my value strip, I can see that 0, 1, 2, and possibly the black will need another layer of paint to make those colors opaque. I'm going to let this dry, and then I'm going to go in and do another layer. So I'm going to add more paint to the colors that are not opaque. This is my second layer of paint. So I decided to add paint to every single little box. I'm going to let this dry, and now I'm going to add my third layer of paint. At this point, it looks like only the first 3 boxes need more paint. So I'm going to go ahead and add in a fourth layer of paint. Once that value strip is totally opaque, we're ready to move on to the next step. We are going to separate shapes into values. For this project, pay close attention to your reference photo to identify the light and dark areas. This will help you decide where to place your value or your color. Just like this image, where the values have been already numbered, you will use the limited color palette to represent those light and dark areas accurately. And if this makes sense to you, you can even number your own work. So 0 is my white, so anywhere that there was a 0, I've painted white. 1 is my yellow, so anywhere that there's a 1, I'm painting the color yellow. I'm going to lay down red where my 2 is at. And just like I did in the value strip, I'm going to let this dry so that I can do another coat on top to get that opaqueness. Moving on to 3, I'm going to apply my turquoise color. Switching up brush sizes as needed. A flat brush is great for a nice clean edge, but a small round brush is helpful to get into small places. While that's drying, going in and adding more layers to cover up those numbers, and then moving on to my fourth value, that navy blue color. Now applying my last value, my black. Now I've been struggling to try to get the yellow super opaque. I can slightly see the ones. So a tip is to actually go in and paint those areas white and then layer the yellow on top. Just make sure the white is dry first. And that concludes this demonstration. Thanks for watching and happy painting.